So hello everyone, my name is Petr Lupač, as was already said, and for me it's an honor to be here with you to present you my work. I was said that you are mostly the technical audience, so I will start my presentation first with a brief explanation of our perspective. How do we look at generative AI, what is specific about it, and why the question why perception and adoption matters, why this question matter from the perspective of the field that I'm in. I'm currently in the big research project that is focused on factors of resilience. It looks at how society can deal with different kinds of interventions and disruptions. And I'm focusing specifically on AI as a disruptive innovation, because it's a kind of disruption in terms of long-term dynamics of Western societies and global societies. And the question is specific in a way that our societies have changed in recent decades, that the social communication is fragmented or modular. So it's not homogeneous in the whole society, and that's what I'm looking at. And I'm also the part of the World Internet Project, which is a collaboration of researchers from over 30 countries, from 5 continents. We have partners from Asia, North America, South America, Africa, and many partners from Europe. And we try to gather comparative data, originally about the diffusion, adoption, and impact of internet on population. And recently, we developed an AI module, and we are asking in the respective countries, like whether people use AI, how do they use it, how useful they see it, how do they perceive the AI as a threat or benefit, and so on. And maybe you know that there are plenty of reports or papers about diffusion of AI in the population. And I will try to show you like a more detailed look at what is behind the fears, what is behind the adoption, and what is behind perceiving AI as beneficial technology from the perspective of users. First, as I promised, a short explanation of what actually we do. Sociology deals with patterns and laws as other sciences. When my 6-year-old child asked me like what I'm doing actually, so I started to explain him that when you leave the apple, so it always falls down to the earth, and it's a law of gravity. And we have similar laws on the level of human populations. One of the most popular image of sociology is in the series Foundation from Isaac Asimov. It's actually about sociologists, but it's not titled like that in that book. And but the people and populations do not behave mechanically. It's more complicated. The good analogy that I found was with explaining like different levels of analysis compared to how water behave. So, for example, if you make analogy of H2O and a human individual, so then when you are a specialist in understanding people, or you have one specific person in front of you, so you can say that you can understand how all the people behave or how societies behave. For example, you are a psychologist and you say, okay, so now when I understand how human brain works, how people's psyche works, then I can understand society. So it's the same like it would be the same like if in chemistry someone would say, I understand H2O, so it means I understand the ocean currents, or I understand the And you can observe probabilities, trends, shift, but not mechanical yes or no, switches. And my favorite examples when explaining is that you have this from World Health Organization, and it says you smoke and kills. So the response from ordinary smokers is, hey, I know the guy, he was 120 years old and he was a heavy smoker and he survived. It's not true that smoking kills. It's linked to cancer. And it's a problem that in elementary schools and secondary schools, people are not taught to think on the population level and on the level of probability thinking, actually. So of course, heavy smoking causes cancer, but it doesn't mean that in every individual case it causes cancer. And it's the same with sociological law. Okay, we observe probabilities, trends, shifts, and we say that something happens with a certain probability, and we can explain why things happen in the way they do. But there is always a certain level of randomness and nonlinearity because it's a complex system. So we cannot, for example, with certainty forecast what will happen, which was an error in Isaac Asimov novel. So, end of basic what sociology is about, and I will go now to present you something what can be called like axiom, like you have axiom in physics, chemistry, or math. So sociology has also their axioms, and one of the key axioms that I teach to students is something that we call definition of situation, and it can be formulated like that our actions stem from our definition of situation. People do not behave based on a factuality of things, but based on meanings they attribute to things. Okay, and it's very important if you try to think what does it mean for a person when it tries to decide whether it starts to use AI or not, whether or in the company. Okay, you want to diffuse a new innovation like AI-based innovation in a company. You want to adopt it or buy it, and then you are deciding, and it doesn't depend on factual qualities of the technology. It depends on how is it perceived. Okay, this is important. So this is why the perception is so important. And what is interesting, it's called Thomas' theorem. It's one of the classic things that is taught in each sociology introduction lesson, that if men define situations as real, so they are real in their consequences. The classical example is run on banks. When, for example, someone says the bank is not solvent and everybody starts to withdraw their money. So bank becomes insolvent because of that definition of the situation. Another example can be when you, I'm a man, okay, so when I say a woman, a nice woman, so if I say myself that I have no chance with her, so it probably will end that there will be no relationship. And if I behave like I'm thinking that she might be interested in me, and there is some probability that it's mutual, so then it can, develop in something different. So I use these AI-generated pictures because the distrust and fear from AI is quite diffused in Czech population and also worldwide. I will show you some specific data. We asked about specific, opinions about it, and it's very much important. Okay, this cautionality. So the adoption of technology, if you're developing a new product, the adoption is not primarily technical, but communicative process. The people start using innovation based on information they have. Okay, and the information is part of the communication process. It can be mediated. You can find something online, or mostly for most innovation, it's based on word of mouth and on face-to-face interactions with other people, even today. Okay? And it's very important. And then it can lead to change of behavior, and adopting innovation means changing your behavior and also investing something, money, time, anything, because if the innovation fails for you, so then you waste, your time and money and everything. So people really wait whether, they should buy, a smartphone or not when they were like, starting to diffuse in population. The favorite example is Dvořák keyboards, which is like, I think many of you know about it, and it has never diffused, even if it's, superior design compared to the classical keyboard, which was developed in 19th century for the slowest possible writing. Actually, it was developed specifically to write as slow as possible, so the typing machine doesn't jam. And it means that even perfect technological design can lead to non-adoption. And the public perception, when we talk about perception in that in this picture, so these are individuals, but the perceptions are spread among people. People talk about. And it's like perception. So on the society level, it was really interesting when I was checking in the 90s. Certain amount of certainty where to, for example, invest and so on. The same was with the green, revolution, Green Deal now, and so on. I'm working like the groundwork, and it's here not to bore you. it's here to recommend you the great book. If you would be interested in diffusion of innovations, this is a marvelous book that is written for people who are not from any specific field. There are many examples, and it's written in quite a simple, like technical language. And it's a synthetic theory based on hundreds of research articles about any kind of innovations that you can imagine. The contraceptive diffusion in South Korea. Okay, the pedagogical diffusion. Pedagogical innovations in schools. Okay, the new seeds in agriculture and this kind of stuff led this author, which was Everett Rogers, to creating a general theory which he calls diffusion of innovations, and he improved the finding that each innovation, when it's diffusing in society, so the shape of the diffusion resembles the letter S, like let me see, yes, like that. Okay. And what is the most important point for entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators is this part. It's takeoff. It's a moment in which the slowly diffusing innovation will lift off and start diffusing, rapidly. The S curve in that theory is based on assumption that there is something like personal innovativeness, and it's a willingness of an individual to try out new things, and it has a normal distribution in population. Okay, so there are people who can be called innovators. It's like here, and they consist roughly 2.5% of populations. And there are people who are these weirdos or nerds, this kind of stuff. They are quite different from something that is understood as normality, but they are crucial for society because they are the points where the innovations come from, and there is this is like the part of the society that is important for adaptation to changes. And then he named other types of people. You might have heard it. It's from Everett Rogers, like first adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards, and describe them. Usually, for example, this kind of first adopters have higher social status. They are younger. They are with higher socioeconomic status. In societies with gender stereotypes, they are mostly men. And laggards are older people who are very much conservatives, people with not enough money, and this kind of stuff. And when you take this normal distribution of personal innovativeness, then you get this S-curve of adoption. And there is that lift, which is important. If you would be interested in that lift of moment, there is one general book which I would highly recommend. It's from American journalist Malcolm Gladwell. It was translated to tens of languages. It's very well written. It was translated also to Czech Republic. And the whole book is using this diffusion innovations theory, but is focusing only on the moment of liftoff. Why certain innovations lift off and certain no. They end up like innovations that are historically forgotten or unsuccessful. So what is another interesting point, that in the first phases of diffusion, the main drivers behind adoptions are internal curiosity and status gains, but mostly something that comes from within a person, because it finds intriguing to try new things, or because everybody is talking about, and I would like to try it. And here it's called like hedonic outcomes. So in the research, and what is important is that when any innovation reaches roughly half of population, then it becomes a norm. Then that's how the normality is being developed in history, in human societies, with everything we do, with clothing and everything. And then the major driving factor behind adopting innovation becomes external pressures. For example, I was telling my students that it was years ago that based on the Facebook diffusion data in Czech population, when anyone who is older starts using Facebook, it's very highly probably because it cannot sustain the comments like you are not using it, why are not using it, I will send you it via Facebook, and this kind of stuff, because it became something which is normal. And for AI to become a transformative and structurally heavy in structurally heavy I forgot the word, I'm sorry, structurally heavy significant innovation, it should close up to this half of population of users. So then it starts to become a norm. In a normal situation in which the society is randomly interlinked and people have like random communication with other people, but this is not our case. And our case is that we came to something that I call, I will have a paper about it, like modular communication. And it means that because of the development of digital communication tools and some other cultural developments, the people started to develop their identities and their view of the world mostly in a communicative, partially closed environment. And I call it like modules. It's taken from IT and from social network analysis, and in this like modules, then there are specific normalities and specific values and specific norms developed. And for that reason, for example, the young generation have this high misunderstanding with old generation nowadays. For me, according to me, it's much higher than it has been for previous generations, just because there is not so much, communication between the two. And then the AI can become a norm only in these. I'm sorry. Okay. AI can become a norm only in this specific subworlds, and it doesn't need to develop to the society. So when we look at the basic data, it was advertised like that I will be presenting fresh data. These are 1-year-old data. Unfortunately, I don't have newer. I plan to collect data next year. We are now updating the module, but I was checking what other data about AI diffusion we have for Czech Republic. And the pace of diffusion is not as fast as it could be, but the problem is how to tackle the integration of AI into search engines, for example, for Google, because, for example, when you type anything to Google, so then you are actually using AI, but many people are not aware of it. For example, when we were measuring how many people are using internet like 20 years ago, when it was relevant, this question, so we had problems that many people were using the internet but didn't know it. It's just can happen. It's like a normal situation for sociologists when we want to measure something. When we look at differences for like the basic sociodemographic groups, so then you have pictures that you can expect. It's blurred because of the conversion again, so I'm sorry for that. I hope that you can see it. And you can see that AI at that year was mostly used or with much higher probability among the youngest cohort. There is like over 1/2 population between 19 and 29 was using it. But what was striking for us was the percentage of people who tried artificial intelligence and stopped using it. In the whole population, it was like 15%, which when you counted how many people are it actually, it's like thousands of people. It's like quite a big number. Okay. And what are other like relevant factors differing who was using it or not? Education and economic well-being, not so much. Education is more important, and also partially men and women. But in Czech Republic, when you see such a small difference among men and women, so it's mostly done by older generation, because older cohorts of women have much lower education than men, and they have much higher stereotypes about themselves, that they are not good with technology and they don't want to try it, use it, they don't drive cars and this kind of stuff. And because of that, when we look at the whole population of men and women, it makes a difference. If we would look just on this cohort, we would see no difference in men and women. Okay, that's very much similar with internet. I was trying to find some newer data just to know how obsolete our data are about diffusion. I found this report. This is from February 2029. It's like more than half year ago. It's 5 months after what we measured. And they came up with a finding which can equal to our finding around 30% of population that is, I don't know how old, 16 or 18 plus. We came up with 24%, so it's like 6%, 7% above our findings, so 6-8% increase. There is like less than once a week, but at least once every 3 months and less frequently. And I think those are people, they are not just using it. Okay, these are these dropouts in our data. So where are we now? We should be somewhere around here. So we have the liftoff already behind with general generative AI. Okay, we were trying to ask people, or we were thinking about asking people whether what kind of AI they are using. And when I'm talking about AI, I mean generative artificial intelligence, like large language models. People have quite big troubles, when you ask general population to different kinds of AI. For example, they don't think about their car as kind of AI in case they have one. And we had a short paragraph at the beginning after awareness question. And we try to explain what are we talking about, and when we will be asking about AI, we mean these, ChatGPT, Claude, Bart at the time, and a Copilot, and this kind of stuff. So, so this was the maximum that we were able to do. And the question is how it will develop further. And the question how it will develop further is also dependent on what drives the adoption, what is like the decisive factors behind adoption. And we also ask the people whether they have intention to use AI in next 6 months. And then we will try, then we are able to model what's behind, the decision to try it. And we also asked the people about perceived usefulness, benefits. And these are all data that I will present you. We have the most complex questionnaire because I was designing it for using it for scientific papers that go deeper into factors behind perceptions, use, perceived impact, and intention to use AI, whereas our partners are using the general report data mostly because they use it for consultation with companies, marketing, and this kind of stuff, and it's enough for them. So when each innovation diffuses differently, so why should slower unequal diffusion of AI be a problem? And the thing is the anticipated profound impact that you know about because you are working in the industry on work employment, competitiveness, warfare, journalism, misinformation, and so on. And in my field, there has been a long discussion going back to 90s because when the computers and then computer networks and the internet started to diffuse rapidly, there appeared that theory of information society stating that the nature of our society is pretty much different from what we know from 20th or 19th century. We are not like that kind of modern society anymore. And it's because our societies mirror the way we communicate. And the way we communicate, dramatically changed, transformed. And because of that, the nature of society is transformed. And then because of that, there is also the new kind of inequality. That was that logic behind something that was called like digital divide, that people who are not using digital technologies will have problems functioning in society as its full members. And the logic is that we inherited some system of social inequality based on prejudices, distribution of wealth and this kind of laws and this kind of stuff. And the system of social inequality leads to unequal internet access at the time, general digital devices. And the unequal internet access had to lead to unequal gains and losses, which had to perpetuate the system of social inequality, and then it had to lead to polarization of society. Okay, so then this is one of the leading authors about the topic, who said that those at the wrong end of the digital divide will become second-class or third-class citizens, like from cyberpunk literature. And I applied it mechanically to AI. So you can just exchange unequal internet access for unequal AI access, and we could expect something similar. When we say access in this theoretical model, so we also means how people are motivated to use it, because it's a first step. If you're not motivated to use the technology, it doesn't matter, how much does it cost, what functional qualities does it have. Then the quality of equipment, price, and the other factors that are linked to materiality and accessibility. Then there is another step, and it's skills. You have to have certain skills to master it. You can have access, you can have perfect equipment, but without skills, it's useless. And then what's important, it's type of use. You can have great, AI agent. You can have great internet connection, great smartphone, and anything. But if you are using it in a way that doesn't help you anyhow, to improve your life, improve your status in society, improve, the way you live. So then it doesn't count to these unequal gains and losses. So there are just like the questions, like the main question that I would like to provide answers based on our data. And I will not present you the statistics. All this kind of stuff I tried to simplify it as much as possible. And my presentation is like longer, more detailed than what we are able to present here. It's just for the reason that if you have the answer or the question, sorry, so I can have some graphs prepared. So who is being left behind? Who is adopting AI? This use, non-use, we already saw like these basic differences. Then the question is like, what are the main reasons that people do not use generative AI in Czech Republic, and what are factors behind intention to use AI? And then what makes the difference between seeing AI as a threat or as a benefit? I will show you that the Czech population is quite polarized in its views of future AI diffusion, and then who benefits from AI use, like what's behind the perceived benefits. The data come from the survey in 2024. I said these are like the technical details. The data are representative for Czech online population, but in Czech Republic, almost 90% of adult population use the internet, and the price for such data collection is like 1/10 of like normal price if you would go to the street. So that's the main reason behind collecting data online, but we collected it carefully to avoid like the basic problems. So the data are first representative, and then we have two samples. The first is a basic sample that consists of 4,000 people, and there are only questions of awareness and use of generative AI. Then there is one smaller representative sample, representative for Czech population. That was the whole questionnaire distributed to them. And then we collected also the boost of AI users only. So we have more detailed data about AI users, because to do the kind of analysis we wanted to do, we have to have like the AI users boost, because for the statistics procedures you need certain amount of items to be used. So 1 year ago, 17% of population of Czech population, of online population, said that they have never heard of artificial intelligence, and like 7 out of 10 said they do not know much about it. And when we look again at the differences, so they are not like stark. Again, age plays a role. Like 38% of people in this age group replied that they know a lot about artificial intelligence. People with tertiary education, like 1/5, also said that they know a lot about it. And when we look at have never heard of it, so we see that it mostly is for people from lower class, primary education, older people, and also women. So when we are now looking at awareness, like the general like attitudes, so we can look at the statements that we gave to the respondents and ask them whether they agreed with them or not. And they had 5-point scales, and they could express the level of their agreement. And here you see that polarization that I told you about, that there is always some part of the population that says that it will make life better, it will help us become more efficient. And there is like the bigger amount of people who said it will cause a massive unemployment, it could mean the end of humankind, it will help us become people who don't learn to use AI will have big problems. So this will not tell us much. Interesting is it could mean the end of humankind. We were discussing with international partners whether we should use it or not, and we just include it because nobody else would ask that, because it has no like practical value. But there is so much talk about how it will end of humankind. So for us, I explained you already, that how the fear and distrust is important in the whole picture. So for us, it was interesting to ask that question. And when we look at differences, what kind of people answered that AI will make life better? So the decisive factor is experience with use, actually. The people who are using it a lot, like half of them agreed with the statement, compared to people who have never used it, where 40% of them disagreed with the statement that it will make life better. We asked whether the people think that children should be allowed to use AI, and there are similar differences as we saw before. There is like majority of Czech population disagrees with children allowing, which is in stark contrast to the fact that under 18 years, like 15 to 18, almost everyone is using AI already. Okay, that's like when we look at the data, so there is 90% or something like that for picture creation and just chatting and homework preparation and this kind of stuff. So then we asked people to assess different reasons why children should or shouldn't be allowed to use artificial intelligence. Because there are many items, we don't have time to go through of them, but I want to show it to you for one reason. Okay, when we split it and we look at the percentage among the people who said that children should be allowed to use AI, and we look at the percentage of people that said children should not be allowed to use AI, then what is surprising is quite significant overlap of agreement with those items. For example, there is makes them more dependent on technology. Okay, you see, it's 70% of people who think that children should be allowed to use AI agree to this, or has a negative impact on children critical thinking, or takes away the fun part of problem solving. Okay, so that's a good example that according to me, of two things. And the first thing is that people do not have a specific logical system of attitudes towards AI. So when you combine different questions, so it's at the first sight it doesn't make sense. Okay, like this. No. If you say children should be allowed to use AI, how can you say that it's just like it's bad for them? And or if you say they shouldn't use it, and then you are answering it's better for their thinking and schoolwork and this kind of stuff, like it's a good thing. The second point is that behind those negative statements, the answers, the fear, like I'm afraid I will be replaced by artificial intelligence in my job. This is specific, but it will cause massive unemployment, for example. This is better case because it's not so linked to personal experience. So there is like larger population agrees. And what's similar with these, with this graph is that majority of population think about AI in a symbolic framework defined by mass media. Okay, and this was one of the decisive moments when we look when we asked the question, what are the main sources about AI that you use? So there is quite clear picture that the younger generation and users have a tendency to access information about AI from specific online sources and their friends who are already using it, and the older generation and people who are not using it are relying on mass media and their family. Okay, and because they are not using it. There's something like homophilia, so someone from their family is not using it as well, probably. So it's like perpetuating these negative attributes. And we asked what could influence perception of AI as a threat, and based on previous research in the area, we definitely looked at gender, age, and education. You looked at it plays a role. Then we looked at personal innovativeness, because people who adopt innovation first has lower perception of that innovation as a threat. Then experience with AI should play a role. And that's something that I stress in my research that is not so common, because sociologists quite often stops with sociodemographics and attitudes and this kind of stuff. But what is truly sociological is to look at social environment in which person is located. Okay, and for mapping this, we asked a question that helped us to map social influence. Look whether social influence. These are 3 statements from the research on technology acceptance and diffusion, and people were given 3 statements. People who are important to me think that I should use it. People who influenced by my behavior think that I should use it. People whose opinions I value prefer that I should use it. Okay, they are quite close to each other. But then we count it together and create index of social influence, which is like a bigger scale, and we can look how important is it in a perception. And then there is a let's skip based on my book, and that's something that I called embeddedness in one's life, because I found that the question whether internet use is advantage or disadvantage in your life, if you use it or not, depends on the extent of how that technology is embedded in your environment. If you have, for example, no other way to access information than via internet, so then you are disadvantaged when you are not using it. But if you have some other option, so then you are not disadvantaged. Okay. And we measured it by, in case of AI, by two items. So it's like 10-point scale. And the extremes where people around me that don't use AI, everyone around me uses AI, and people in my profession don't use AI in their work, and people in my profession can't do without AI. So when someone scored 20 in that index, it means that there were people who answered that everyone around me uses AI and people in my profession can't do without AI. The people are not able correctly assess these things, but it doesn't matter because we are working with population data and they neutralize each other. These errors. And then we were also thinking we indexed the positive attitudinal items. And we combined the perception of AI as a risk general from these four items. It could mean the end of humankind, cause massive unemployment. I'm afraid I'll be replaced by AI in my job. And we asked, and we created another perception of AI as a risk specifically for children from negative items. So what drives perception of AI as a threat in general? This is based on multiple regression analysis based on data. I skipped it. I just showed you the graph and the results. And what multiple regression does is that it counts all mutual correlations among all variables. So, for example, if you see the gender differences, as I told you, but behind the gender differences is actually education, because education explains the gender differences because the older women have lower education. So this method will neutralize the role of gender and will show you the education as a real factor. And we put all these factors in the analysis, and only 3 factors seem to be important in whether people see AI as a threat or not. And the first is gender. Women still are more concerned. And the second is perceived benefits, whether the person sees technology as beneficial. And the third and the most important, when we look at the standardized effect of the variable of the index, is that peers' opinion, and sorry for that, it's the social influence actually, because the people around me who are important to me think that I should actually use it. And what doesn't matter here, it's age, how much AI is environment, what is the education, whether a person has experience or not, and the level of innovativeness. Okay, it fell off the table during the analysis. When we look at children specifically, so what matters again, it's social influence again, but it differs because their experience and AI environment plays a role. Okay. And what doesn't matter again, this is quite interesting. These are sociodemographics and innovativeness. My explanation is that because people who are using AI or not using AI, they are much better able to assess whether the AI is risk for children or not, compared to the general statement like AI will cause massive unemployment, or it will mean the end of humankind, which are not, linked to personal experience. So that's the reason. There is a summary. What is interesting that the social influence has a opposite effect for children or threat perception, and for perception of AI as a general threat. Okay, so when we look at general risk, so the more people think that you should use AI, so it adds to you perceiving AI as a general threat for future development. But when we look at children, so the more people around you think that you should use AI, it lowers your perception of AI as a threat. Now I have to check the time. Okay. So now what drives the intention to use ChatGPT? I just wanted to show you like what the models are used for behavior and intention and use in companies. When you have the complex model, we use only the part of it. And there is another variable, which is effort expectancy. How difficult a person think that it would be, to use AI. And when we looked at the factors, like what is important, whether people, when a person said, I will try to use AI, I think I will try it in the next 6 months, compared to people who say, no, I will not definitely try it in the next 6 months, I will not be using it. So the education, socioeconomic status, internet use in its environment, and awareness play no effect. But the strongest effect is experience. When people already tried AI but stopped it, so it was quite a strong predictor. And another strong predictors were for sure the level of innovativeness. It's understandable. Then AI embeddedness, how many people are around, are using AI, how much is needed in your work, and then social influence. You cannot directly compare, these dots. This is different, a different method, and it says when you keep all other variables intact and you increase the value of the explaining variable for one, how many times the chance to use AI will increase. So, for example, when you switch from never used AI to dropouts, so the chance to use AI in the question intention to use will increase 3 times. Okay, but this is just a yes or no variable. The AI embeddedness and innovativeness and social influence, it was like 10-point scale. So if you calculate it by 10, so then the effect is much bigger. And I come to the end of presentation, and then what makes difference when it comes to usefulness? We ask people generally, how useful have AI programs been to you? And how useful have AI programs been to you in the following areas? And we ask different areas that we also asked, like how much are you AI using for these purposes? And then we computed index, and again tried to look at what is the difference among people who see their use of AI as beneficial compared to people who see their use of AI as not beneficial. And what was important? It was not gender, it was not education, it was not age again, it was not how much AI was used or required to use around the respondent, but it was again social influence, internet embeddedness. It means how digitalized is the environment of a person, and the intensity and breadth of use of AI. It was like the different kinds of uses and the intensity of frequency of use. And these were only three variables that explained the difference between people who saw their use of AI as beneficial. So I tried to find something about our partners. They have for sure different percentage for awareness and use. The good example is Switzerland. They have quite higher numbers of use, but it doesn't tell us much. What's interesting is that Switzerland has more evenly distributed knowledge, and they have much fewer dropouts, but the population of Switzerland is quite specific. I cannot compare it quite well. And when we look at the USA, so there is a high proportion of heavy users, and much more optimistic lookout at the future of AI. The problem is that we cannot compare the analysis. I cannot run the analysis again for the data because they didn't ask all the accompanied variables, the questions, and they didn't ask in such detail. For example, this question with benefits, they asked only this one. How useful have AI programs been to you? This is specifically like Czech contribution to the knowledge base that we have. And this is like the conclusion from that. That adoption is quite limited, and it's going on a slow pace, and it will not much change. I think it will be similar to internet diffusion. We will see what the integration to search engines will do, but I'm quite skeptical given the experience of Czech use of Seznam CZ. Then the perception is quite polarized, and important is the social influence, because in all three aspects it was intention to use, perception, and perception of how beneficial it is. What was decisive was having around people who think that I should use AI, and these are like capsules in that in a society, and once this capacity will diminish, so then the pace of diffusion should slow down or will turn to different reasons. That's all. Thank you for attention, and I hope that was successful. And it's a lot of graphs and like a lot of data. So maybe statistics that you're not familiar with. So if you want to simplify anything or repeat something, so just I'm here for you.
Since there are no questions online yet, if you have a question, please type it into chat. Start in the room. So are there any questions?
Do I speak the microphone or just out loud?
Yeah, you will be heard. It's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
I can repeat it if I understand.
There was one chart, maybe 2 or 3 slides back.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just go back to it very briefly?
Sure, no problem. Just say stop.
This one.
Yeah.
Can you just very briefly explain what does it show again?
Okay. So what do we explain is the intention to use AI. Okay, we asked people what is the probability that you will start using AI in the next 6 months, and they had a choice of that's very high probability, low probability. I don't see it as probable, and there is no chance at all. Okay, and we are because it's not quite a big scale, so we have to use something that is ordinal regression. Which looks like an algorithmic model, and you have this the variable that we want to explain. This is the intention to use, and then we have all other these drivers, that we expect that they should have some effect because they correlate with it. There is some link to it. Okay, and the method does that you keep all the explained variables intact, and you measure how much what chance of switching to from low probability to high probability of use, how it will change when you increase just one of those variables by one. Okay, so for example, so we calculate odds ratios, and the simple example is experience. So it says when you don't change education, awareness, internet use, innovativeness, embeddedness, it keeps intact, and you just change a person's quality from never used to used but stopped using it. So it increases the chance of answering, I will probably use it instead of I will not use it 3 times. Okay, this is very difficult even for older students of sociology, this method to explain. But it's quite good because you neutralize all other effects, by way of correlation, and it's counted on logarithmic scale. So that's why that's quite different. The zero is there is no chance. Okay, and I didn't have time, but it didn't come to my mind to standardize it, because the innovativeness. It has 10 points. Zero is I don't I hate or I don't like trying new things. Okay, and the 10 is when something new appears, I'm into to use it. Okay, it's just like this difference. And again, when you keep all other variables intact and you increase this innovativeness just by 1, so then the probability of using of intention to use AI will increase by 1.25 times. Okay, but you have 10-point scale of innovativeness. So if you just multiply it, so then innovativeness is quite decisive. And the same is with AI embeddedness. It was how much AI is around you and how is required for your work. And social influence is people around me think that I should use AI, and so I hope that this is more understandable.
This was much more understandable.
Yeah.
So if I just try to rephrase it in my words, if let's say my grandma doesn't use AI, based on the results, the most I can do for her is to let her try it for some time, and considering that she will go through it, she'll have some experience that has the highest chance of making her think that she hasn't got
There was one slide, I hid it because there were too many slides already, and it was a slide at the beginning in the diffusion of innovation theory, and the theory distinguishes 5 attributes of innovations that add to the probability of adopting the innovation. And the one of them is observability. The second is perceived complexity. Then is trial. It's a hellish word, English word. Trialability, and comparative advantage. And the 5th I can't remember, but the important thing is not that's trialability. Trialability is whether you have chance to use it. For example, if your grandma think about it and you show her that she can, for example, I don't know, create a new recipe, or she can find how to treat her flowers because quite quickly, or how to design her garden, and it can produce also the picture of the garden, how it will look like after that, and the plan, what you have to buy and everything. So she will be amused and she will start using it, but she just doesn't know that it can do it. So and she can also she can try it, or she can observe someone else do it. It's trialability and observability. And one of the biggest factors behind not using AI is perceived complexity. People just hear from media how complex it is, but when they start using it, then it's the main obstacle is way. They just have to find like some simple way using it. And I think one of the biggest driver will be voice interaction with AI, because you just need someone to turn it on, and then it goes, So
you think that the mobiles can also manipulate?
yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I suppose because from the perspective of the big companies, they OpenAI is a good example. They are fighting heavily with persuading investors in the world that this is the revolution, that it will change, everybody will need it and everything. They are not quite successful in it currently. And so they will be promoting heavily this kind of usage in cell phones, and to ease the threshold, the barriers of perceived complexity. And then I think this will be this way. One of the good examples are these companions, avatars. My friend is a psychologist, and I'm discussing with him the extent of using AI for personal therapy, which in Asia and in United States is incredible. It's like, millions of people are using AI for personal therapy. They wouldn't go to therapist, for example, but they have some personal problems they want to discuss, and they are not shy to discuss it with AI. It's not something that you would recommend to others, but for the basic discussion and enrichment of your life, so it's not bad. And that's why it's so heavily used. And then the market in mobile applications with this kind of friends and avatars, especially for teenagers and young people, and lone Chinese men who are like, I don't know, 100, 200 million more than women there. So it's a big market. So this will be there also. So I think that's my personal opinion. It's yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah.
What risks do you see personally in the use of these types of avatars with children who may not have the capacity to distinguish what's an adult talking to them and just some LLM giving them maybe wrong advice? Because it's been on the news already about kids doing bad things because they were recommended by an LLM to do so.
I don't know. No, really. I have to learn it. It took me years to learn this answer. No, I really don't know, because there is quite a moral panic now, in media, and the real threat is that you have someone who is compassionate and who takes into account anything, who listens 24 hours a day, and who have understanding for your problems. And you will never find anyone like that when you are a teenager in the outside world. That's a biggest danger in it. And it resembles me of a brilliant, it's not brilliant, but inspirative book from Sherry Turkle. It was Connected But Alone. And she was discussing that the problem for teenagers and children with communicating online, the biggest problem is that normally you have to learn to conversate in an awkward situations, because the situations are always awkward. You don't know the other person. You have to spend time with the other person. You have to find your own way. And by that, you are learning how to conversate and how to be in presence of other people and not to be anxious about it, that you don't just know what to say, and he looks at me, what should I say, and this kind of stuff. And because when you have children that are just communicating via cell phones, so it's a very easy way to avoid that anxiety from being physically next to each other in like bodily, physically, and that can be a similar case with AI and the AI avatars, because big costs, when you have other person that's, you don't know what to say and everything, and this is simple. You just can delete it, you can correct it and anything. But as far as I know, ChatGPT, I'm mostly using ChatGPT. I'm satisfied for my purposes with that. And I'm using Copilot. So as far as my experience counts, I think this thing is not so dangerous because it tells you, why not going outside to go to other person, and people have natural, need for social contact. So I think these two, and that's why I said I don't know, because it finally and in the end it depends on parents, on how a child is, have developed self-dignity, and self-assurance, and self-efficacy and this kind of stuff, that then you can go to the outer world and communicate with people, and the online communication is not enough for you. But majority of children do not have such parents, and then it's a problem, So that's I think very interesting thing to research and to intervene before it's late, because the smartphones and social media, it was a big historical experiment on children, and I think it was quite bad thing, like when you look at the increase of anxiety and in certain countries increase of depressions and suicidality, especially among young girls. So that's for me it's a simple answer, what are behind it, and we should be thinking twice before diffusing, but there's a big market behind it, so, and the money first. So from this perspective, it's like quite a skeptical field of study, sociology or psychology. Thank you for question.
Any other questions?
Do we know already something about dynamics of this change comparing with different changes?
I also wanted to ask it.
Because not every curve of normal distribution is the same, so curves should be different also.
You mean the diffusion of AI, like general model? I was trying to find some because you have two ways how to get the curve. The first way is that you are there when it starts to diffuse, and then you are measuring these points, and then you create a curve. And the second is that you ask people to recall, and then you are like reverse reconstructing, the curve. And I was trying to find it out. Like basically, I didn't do much like literature review, but I couldn't find it. The data. It's so new thing that we have so few points. And the problem is, it was similar with internet. You have these, graphs of how internet spread, rapidly, but it was not the same technology. You can't compare the internet of the 70s with internet of the 90s and today. And the same is with AI. If you look at the diffusion of AI among companies like 10 years ago, and European statistics do it, So how can you compare it to today's, AI? It's uncomparable. It's a different, technology because of integration of large language models. But so I don't know about anything like that we would have enough data sets. I think the companies have these data for sure, for countries based on IP addresses, but I haven't seen a report like, definitely there are reports for investors like that. They have to show, the pace of development.
I think that even for investors, they are not showing.
They rather show how are they approaching general intelligence.
They will make it somewhere on the big bubble, but not anything.
But so when there are these claims online that it's the fastest adopted technology ever, there's no basis in actual.
I don't know.
Research.
Yeah, that was very much similar. Like that, internet was the fastest diffused technology ever. I found many graphs even in scientific publications, but they just started at the beginning of 90s. They forgot all the way out from the end of 60s and beginning of 90s, where the email protocol originated and this kind of stuff, and it was already in the internet according to me, or 80s at least. So it took much longer time. And with large language models, I don't know, but according to me, it's different. And the problem behind the diffusion of innovation theory is that it worked with two basic channels of communication. First is face-to-face interaction, and second is mass media. And it completely lacks, the online world, like distributed communication, this kind of stuff. And there are many attempts to develop on that. There is an interesting book, which is, I think, called Digital Chasm, and it tries to apply the theory to a diffusion of digital innovations in an online world. But there is no like synthetic model of how actually it changed, and it's very difficult to track because, yeah.
There's one question online. I think we should conclude with that due to the time. But Tanasa is asking that you haven't mentioned yet the environmental cost of using AI as in like it being an influence. That's how I understand the question. And so, yeah, she's asking about, electricity being used, rare metals used, and large data centers popping up. Why isn't it in the research? Is it not a concern for general population, or like, yeah?
Yeah, thank you for question. It's not in the research. The reason is money, and what the partners decided should be in the AI module. And we are now developing updated module, and we are in the middle of the process. We had a meeting yesterday with our partners that want to comment and discuss the changes. And one of the proposals is to add this question, the awareness of it, and how people see it, how serious is it for them, for the assessment of whether they use it or not, and this kind of stuff. So I think we could use it. Yeah, like for me personally, it's serious problem, with AI. But it has been there already with smartphones and internet, when you just count all the devices and the whole business, and the raw materials necessity and this kind of stuff. So, and it's completely different discussion. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, well, let's thank the speaker again, please.